This is an e-poster presentation for a study about to come out in Environmental Research Letters. The study is called Drone Data Reveal Fine-Scale Variation of Tundra Greenness Not Captured by Satellite Observations. The lead author of the study is Jakob Assmann. I'm Isla Myers-Smith, and our fellow co-authors are Jeffrey Kirby, Andrew Cunliffe, Gergana Daskalova, and I've also added the High Latitude Drone Ecology Network on this presentation, and I'll mention them at the end. I'm going to focus on the main findings of the study. So our overall finding was that drone data captured the temporal variation in satellite data across vegetation communities, areas, and years. We were working on Kikiktar-Kerschel Island in the Western Canadian Arctic and across different vegetation communities on the island. And you can see that in the map figures here. Just to break that down a bit, drone data better captured spatial heterogeneity in the Normalized Difference Vegetation Index relative to Sentinel-2 and Landsat-8 satellite data. So you can see that in the plots on the left here, where you have a pixel-by-pixel comparison of the drone versus Sentinel and the drone versus Landsat data. And you see a slight positive offset in the satellite data relative to the drone data. In the middle, you can see maps of the drone and satellite data, in this case Sentinel, across the landscape, and Landsat at the bottom. And you can see the difference between the drone data and the Sentinel or Landsat data across the landscape. And the question is, when we're comparing drone data to satellite data, is there important ecological variation that's lost when we scale up to the pixel sizes of different satellite data sets? We looked at the spatial variation of vegetation greenness across these two dominant vegetation communities in which we did our drone data collection, and we found that it peaked at distances about half a meter. That might suggest that you might need grain sizes of less than half a meter to capture the ecological patterning in this landscape. So the two different vegetation types that we studied were a dryas vetch tundra and a tussock sedge tundra. And you can see in these drone images the different spatial patterning of the plants. In these two communities, you actually have pretty different species compositions, so different plants represented, and then you also can see these different patterns of bare ground in the landscape. You can see the strips of bare ground in the dryas vetch tundra, and in the tussock sedge tundra, you can see the really dominant tussocks, but less bare ground. So at least at this site, it looks like key ecological variation happens at relatively small spatial scales, around half a meter or less. And we did a sort of aggregation exercise in this study, and we looked at how variation was lost as we aggregated up to satellite pixel sizes. And you can see that illustrated here in this figure from the paper. And so a key question that this study motivates is, what is the optimal scale to study these ecosystems and to observe them from drones or from space to pick up those key ecological dynamics, such as vegetation change that's happening on the ground? So another thing we did in the study was compare the drone data to phenology data, so records of plants on the ground, in this case the length of leaves, and how that changed across the growing season as we measured the drone data across the growing season as well. And we saw a strong correspondence between the mean longest leaf length and the NDVI from the drone data. And that change in leaf length matched the phenological pattern in the change in the Normalized Difference Vegetation Index. So we saw a high correspondence between the in situ data and the drone data. And if you want to know more about this study, I'd encourage you to check out the paper. It's about to come out in Environmental Research Letters. We're just working on the proofs right now. It's also a preprint that you can find at the link in the gray box. And if you want to know more or potentially contribute data to the High Latitude Drone Ecology Network, I would really encourage you to check out poster 268 by Jeff Kirby. The High Latitude Drone Ecology Network is a group of researchers carrying out drone-related research at sites around the tundra biome and in other high latitude ecosystems. And we're about 50 researchers at the moment, and depending on how you look at it, our data set represents 73 Arctic landscapes across 18 regions spanning all of the Arctic nations. And so that's many, many, many different contributed drone images following standardized protocols. And in this slide, there's a few of the different sites within that network for you to check out. And so I'll just end on the point that tundra ecosystems and tundra landscapes are very heterogeneous. And in order to capture that heterogeneity, we need to look at using higher resolution monitoring of these systems, and that could be using drones and also higher resolution satellite data collection. And I'd be happy to chat about the study, the High Latitude Drone Ecology Network, or answer any questions you have.